So I'm going to do a quick live. I'm going to try to do a quick live. It's just really to talk about corrupted downloads. And this is a problem that many spiritualists have. It's a massive problem. And the reason why this happens is because as you open your portals, your third eye, your crown chakra, and you're bringing yourself to a different consciousness, right? You're parting the veils of consciousness, right? From 3D into the infinity of the Akashic records, the infinity of divine source, the one of 1,000 names, the one who created us all. And in that realm, I mean, clearly you must know this, right? We know how some angelic beings fell and chose to fall into other realms, right? For their own egoic gratification, right? And what's interesting about us as a species is that we've always had these amazing connections. We've had the oracles of Delphi. And so I think we should talk about the oracles of Delphi. So originally the oracles of Delphi were women who, of course, high priestesses, Vestal virgins quite often, I would suspect, if I recall correctly, who would sit over this gaseous substance that would give them this DMT awakening, and they would have these amazing downloads, right? And these, as the progression of the divine feminine fell because of the patriarchal stance that wanted to control everything, what happened was that many of them, these oracles of Delphi, were forced, coerced, bullied into coming up with supposed oracles, divine anointment of leaders for their power. So quite often, in the beginning of a evolution of a spiritual connection with the divine, it was a pure download. And then, of course, you could say ancient capitalism, we're talking about ancient warriors, ancient kings who wanted their crowning or their grabbing of power and land to be promoted by supposed an oracle. So of course they were bullied into that. So what's interesting, and what people, I don't know why people don't get it. So if you've ever played with a Ouija board, right, you know that weird shit happens with a Ouija board. And many of us as spiritualists, once we've played it, most of us, it's funny, we all have the same story. Most of us did it once at 14 and never again. Because there were these weird energies being attracted to us. So when people channel, okay, now let me go back to channeling. When people channel, there's a very pure energy that's non-patronizing, non-judgmental, and patient. Because these souls, these high-dimensional souls who have chosen not to incarnate on planet Earth, realize the density of 3D. They realize that. So similarly that you wouldn't talk down to a little 3-year-old, they don't talk down to us. And quite often when you do have a channeled experience, you'll know if it's coming from divine love or a dark force. How do you know? Well, it'll make you feel ill at ease. It'll make you question. It will make you might actually see, typically you might see gorgeous colors, and then suddenly everything's kind of either ultra bright and it feels dark though it's ultra bright, or it'll be completely in patches of gray, muddy. It's really interesting. You can actually, and the minute that you start questioning, coming out of a meditation when you've been channeling a message or a download, right? You're going to feel it. Your body's going to feel off. And I'm inviting you to really sit down and feel that, journal that, and don't gaslight yourself, because it's a wrong download from a corrupted energy. Okay, there's nothing to be afraid of. And that's why you're getting people who run back to, oh my God, I'm running back to Jesus. It's the devil. It's the demons. Well, in a sense, they're not wrong, but in a sense, they're using fear. They're choosing fear. And the reason why these corrupted downloads happen is not to fuck you up. On some sense, it is to actually bring you back to 3D and start rubbing on your rosary beads feverishly because you're so fucking afraid and you're in a fetal position, afraid that you tapped into too much power. This happens a lot. And the thing is, you have to stand your ground. So when they're out to, because people are being attacked, spiritually speaking, there's not a joke. People are being attacked. But the difference between us and people who live in fear is that the ones that are fear-filled and who are like approaching their awakening and approaching and going through, they're crossing various rivers of consciousness, of awakening, of real self-realization, if you will. And the minute they hit something that is corrupted, demonic, cruel, whatever, they fucking run back to their cave. Whereas us, many of us, will stand firm and realize that we're being tested, one, and two, it's a good sign. It means that you're actually on the right track. Now you're making them afraid, so afraid of your power that's emerging out of you that they're going to start attacking you. It's actually not a bad sign. It's actually good. That doesn't mean you kneel to it. It means you tell them to fuck off. And that's why we use mantras like Om Namah Shivaya to remove that blockage, okay? On another level, there are people channeling corrupt shit, okay? And they're not being discerning. When you have an entity that is using you as a channel, they can be playful and funny and sweet. Like a great channeler is Lee Harris, who channels the 3 Z's. And the energy bounces. It's full of light. I just watch the man. Just watch him go under and what the messages are. There's nothing crazy. There's nothing weird. There's nothing patronizing. It's not putting you down. Okay? When you're... and all of these people that you're seeing channel are channeling. Don't get me wrong. They're not full of shit. They're actually channeling something. But we have to discern between what are they channeling? Something in the light or something in the dark? And I think that's what we're not actually... so we're so busy accepting whoever's coming through the door, saying, I'm a channeler and here are the messages, that we're not actually discerning the style, the approach. And as an elder, I would never try to... If somebody asked me a question from a place of naivete, right? And they were really honestly asking, they really wanted to know, not in a snarky attitude, in a real desire to know something that they can't seem to wrap their head around. I would never talk to them, and I know that you wouldn't either, like they're an idiot. Never. Because I'd realize as a spirit soul from on another realm, right, that I'm talking to a little child. Not because they're a little child, because it's an ancient soul, but because they are encased in the 3-dimensional construct, in a matrix, in a grid, in a system, with amnesia, and they don't remember who they really are. To them with, a patronizing tone or a put-down tone or I know more than you do, ha ha ha. That would never be like that. I would kneel down, eye level, spiritually speaking, and gently speak to them with patience. Because I'm realizing that this person is hurting, or else they wouldn't be here talking to me and ask me deep esoteric questions. And so I think we need to start like discerning some of these channelers who say that they're channeling these great souls. Because some of these souls that are being channeled are not kind. And they're not coming from a place of they are very egoic. Okay? Enlil, Enki, they were egoic. They came from high dimensions, Anunnakis. We have this weird idea that because you're in 6D, you're not an asshole. That's not true, okay? Clearly. I mean, we've seen it in action. Does that make sense? Let me read what you guys are saying, because it sounds like you guys are really talking, so that's always good. Bear with me. Let me go up. Good evening from the UK. Love your content. Oh, thank you, Carl. That's really sweet of you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let me go and see what else. I really appreciate it. Greg is an abundance of wealth on its way into my life as I spoke it into the universe. Beautiful. It's always good to have abundance. Do you know anything about primary perception? That's the scientific proof for Christ consciousness. Primary perception. I don't know the term at all, but it's the scientific proof of Christ consciousness. Well, let me explain to you science, okay? And which I'm not saying that in a weird, patronizing way. The way I understand science is that what we believed was scientific proof 100 years ago has been refuted. So science from a 3D perspective, it vacillates. It's their truth for the moment, if you know what I'm saying. I remember there was a mathematician. I'm not sure if it was Stephen Hawking, but it could have been. And the reason I know this is I had a friend. We were all in lithography class. We were in art class, and he had printed on this Joan of Arc piece, by the way, proof of God existence using a mathematical equation. And he had a showing at Caltech. I kid you not. And there were mathematicians crowding and looking, holy shit, yeah, that's the equation of the proof of God. But they also have equations of disproving God. And they also have equations of proving the devil. And they also have do you see where I'm coming here? So what we have to understand as a spirit soul, as a multidimensional being, is we don't need 3D science to tell us that Christ consciousness exists. We feel it in our hearts. Buddha consciousness, Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, it's all that consciousness. It is a one of 1,000 names, the God, God, the one of 1,000 names, the one who created us all. That energy, frequency, we feel it. And so I don't need somebody to do an equation to show me. Does that make sense? And this is not to denigrate that, okay? It's to say that we need to trust ourselves above all things. I think this is why I'm doing this live. I need you to trust your heart chakra. And I need you to do a lot of chakra work, all your 9 somatic chakras, eventually doing your Earth Star, your Stargate, all of the 15 other chakras once you've mastered your 9 chakras, so that you can actually have massive clear discernment. What's problematic with our system, does that make sense? Thank you for agreeing. I really appreciate the gift. That's what we need to get to. Because as long as we're led by the nose of this scientific thing and that political leader and that opinion and that, we have to just discern right from wrong directly from our heart chakra, as individually and collectively. It's that simple. Does that make sense? Because in 3D, they could prove scientifically Christ consciousness, Buddha consciousness, Krishna consciousness, but in 6D, they could prove something else. That would be even more refined, with names of high level souls or consciousness, names we don't even know or long forgotten through the revolving karmic wheel of these incarnations we've taken on, and amnesia suppressing all of our memories of our innate, and this is not to kiss our asses, okay, divinity. Why? Because we are one drop connected, or one petal. We are one petal, that's probably a better way to say it, in the garland of God consciousness around in other words, we are one. And we surround this God consciousness. Each of us are each an integral part of this reality, and multiple types of realities. And so when we look at 3D science, we got to, I mean, the one thing that came out of 3D science is thought become matter, quantum mechanics, quantum realities, quantum healing, things of that nature. Great. Okay, awesome. Because the universe is a holographic universe. And I did a whole thing on Mind Power into the 21st Century by John Kehoe, so you guys can, and I highly recommend the book as a primer into the mechanics of manifestation through the holographic universe. But my point, going back to channelers, is that I want you to sit, there's a beautiful man who I think you guys should all check out on Gaia.com called Adam Apollo. Exactly like it sounds. Adam, like the first man, Apollo, like the god, the Greek god. And go ahead and look him up. And he has two interviews with Rudy on and he's not a channeler, but he remembers shit. That's pretty amazing. And he understands energy like you wouldn't believe. And I'd like you to watch it, because it's going to give you a sense of the various levels of consciousness that we have to get to so that we can become more connected with each other as brothers and sisters, irrespective of our current races and religious beliefs. In other words, when people are so clingy to their religion, I have to remind them, you've been Muslim as well, you've been Jewish as well, you've been Buddhist as well, you've been atheist as well, you were Wicca before. In other words, you were a Druid. You were an Egyptian priest. You've been in religions we don't even remember. Religions that were around 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, that you don't even remember, and you were devout even then. So we have to stop being so clingy to our national, racial, religious identity, because it is our prisoner unless it becomes something that you use as a ceremony, as something that gives you a sense of connection with the divine. And as long as you're not like clinging to it with like a ferocity, like a rabid dog, as long as it's a healthy, fluid connection and you're using that particular religion that you love, and that just gives you a soothing sense of belonging, okay, no problem. But when you start like using it as a weird, toxic, narcissistic way to confuse or to denigrate other people, now we have a problem, massive problem. So I hope that it's a sincere question. Absolutely, I agree. I'm looking for others who have gnosis of the higher self. They have all self-deception in their belief systems. You have to forgive them. They don't know. Well, it's not even a forgiveness. It's just all self-deception in their belief systems. You have to forgive them. They don't know. Well, it's not even a forgiveness. It's just, I mean, I call it, honestly, you know what I call it? Because amnesia is one thing, but spiritual Alzheimer's really hits it, in my opinion, when I use that term for myself. Because what I see is, I imagine a person that was a brain surgeon or a masterful artist or a violinist, or somebody who created incredible, beautiful things for themselves and for the benefit of the collective. And little by little, they forget everything. And so in a way, that's what happened to us as we fell into 3D. That's why a lot of high-level dimensional spirits will not incarnate into 3D. They will fucking not do it. Because they're afraid that it'll be 1,000, 2,000 incarnations before they ever come back to self-realization. That's so many of us are brave. You're giving me coordinates. That's interesting. Okay, I have to look for people who are actually direct contact. Take care. God bless. Okay, good. Goodbye. Anyway, any other questions or comments? The thing about people who are arrogant, and there's a lot of that in the spiritual community and other communities, other religions, is that they think they know it all. And the thing about it is that the more you know, the less you know. And that is something that one has to understand. Even high dimensional spirits, like when I step into the Galactic Council in my meditations, when that happens, I got to tell you that you've got incredibly powerful, brilliant souls that have massive amount of knowledge, and yet infinity, right? Because the Akashic library is infinite. No one so far except the divine and some archangels and so forth can actually encompass all that energy, all that knowledge in one, and then maintain that knowledge for their incarnation, whichever dimension they live in. And I'll give you an example of that truth. It's, again, we're going back to the battle of Kurukshetra with Arjuna and Krishna. And Arjuna is belaboring, fighting his uncles and his brothers and his cousins on the other battlefield who are demons. They're demons. And Krishna is trying to say to him, listen, today is the day they die. This is a battle that's happening, whether you're involved or not, but you have free will. You do what you want. And it's a conversation between free will and fate. That's why some of the great minds of this planet have all read the Bhagavad Gita. Just on the side note, not just the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, which is actually older than the Bible, on the side note. So here he is, facing these demons on the other side of the battlefield who aren't related to him. All of them are relations. And he's feeling heartbroken that he has to do this. And so Krishna, knowing that he thinks that, Arjuna thinks that Krishna is a charioteer and a mentor, finally opens Arjuna's brain, his consciousness, fully out of 3D, or probably they were in 5D at that time. And he opens his brains and then shows the entire infinite truth of the universe in minutes. And then he shuts down. In other words, Krishna just then closes the portals to that site. And the takeaway for Arjuna was, oh my God, I'm in the presence of the divine in the form of a human. I have free will. I can walk away from this battlefield. Someone else will take over, but I will do my duty. And you can't say that he walked away with that infinite amount of energy. In other words, he wasn't able to keep all that knowledge that he saw in minutes forevermore in his consciousness. But what he did get is a taste of it. And that taste gave him the understanding of divine knowledge, infinite knowledge. And because of that, he decided to just, they're fated to die. Let me just go do, let me do my duty. Let me just do it. Let me be the one that does it. And the battle of Kurukshetra ensued. And of course, he was victorious. So my point to this is that we can't possibly know, or even if we have these massive, intense aha moments, which many will experience taking sacred medicines or whatever, it will not, unfortunately, be everlasting in your human consciousness, for example. But that's not to say that you haven't tasted the nectar of knowledge, and that can propel you to the next step. And that's what I mean by the more you know, the less you know. Because in these bodies, at least I can say that with certainty, we can't remember. On other dimensions, as we ascend and start incarnating back into our original selves, right, in these various types of humanoids or different species of sentient beings, we can actually start remembering a lot more. Well, in fact, I know for a fact that for some of us, we'll drop these bodies. This will be our last 3D incarnations, and we'll be in 5D, 6D, and we will remember all of our incarnations. It'll be like very entertaining, but it won't matter that much anymore, if that makes sense. So going back to channelers and going back to you discerning what comes to you, just try to make it a point that on a daily basis, just like you take a shower every day, you would never wash one armpit Tuesday and the second armpit Wednesday. Similarly, don't work on one chakra. Work on all your chakras and spend more time on one that you feel needs more help, more care, more clearing, more charging, so that you can be to a level of such discernment so that when you get a corrupted downloads, you're pretty damn sure it was a corrupted download. And it's not going to have you screaming and running back to your old self in regression. It's going to have you stand firmly and refute that and redirect it or dissolve it, and you keep walking. You keep going forward, if that makes sense. Any questions or comments that are, in that place? This is okay, listen, I honestly, I hate to say this, but arrogance is not spirituality in its higher, pure self. Arrogance is Anunnaki energy. So you can be on a high frequency, my friend, but until you are humbled, and you better humble yourself so that you're in service to the collective. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Arrogant behaviors are not going to make it happen. And no offense, I can't have you just, sending coordinates unless you're going to explain it. The Holy Spirit of the Divine Feminine Agape love confirmed itself in my heart and mind. Good. Then go ahead and spread the truth to others. Like, go ahead and help others come to that understanding. I have to look for people who are actually direct contact to... Anyway, some of the arrogance is interesting to me. Any other questions? Be careful of arrogant spiritualists, because if they're arrogant, if they're not understanding that part of the reason why we're in this fucking shit show on the planet in the first place is because of arrogance, self-importance. That's not to say denigrate yourself and be a welcome mat. It's to say, be like Yeshua. Okay, Yeshua was passionate, aware, but he was in a healthy level of being humble. Because he surrendered to the divine and he surrendered to what was. And he did not feel like he was above anyone else. He, I think, sadly realized that most of the 12 apostles, for example, were like little boys. They couldn't comprehend very complex shit. And he says it in the Gnostic Gospels. He talks about it. So there was a sadness in him. No, he didn't want to be above anyone. He wanted everyone to walk beside him. But the mental constraints and the false egos, self-importance of these apostles, many of them, he couldn't jive with them, and it was sad, and I'm sure he was lonely. And Mary Magdalena was his divine counterpart, and she walked beside him in spirit, in body, and in mind. They could actually travel together in these very esoteric conversations. Okay, hence the divine couple, the power couple, if you will. But humility is something that you want to look for, not false humility, not these little soft little voices with these weird personas that people have put on, like they're so calm and their nervous system is so calm and everything's no. If you look at Yeshua, who's a perfect example of passion, righteous rage, and compassion, empathy. I think that is a good example, because anyone that is going to bullshit you and do a kumbaya, I'm just so, I'm just so this. Probably the only person that whose natural vibration was like that, but it was natural, was Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh is naturally like that. Eckhart Tolle is naturally like that. Naturally, not putting on a fucking a facade at all. They're just, that's their nervous system. That's actually their truest personality. That's how they were. That's how Eckhart Tolle is, and that's how Thich Nhat Hanh was. Okay, so be discerning. Again, be discerning. Like understand the difference between when you're being played and somebody's bullshitting you with this false persona, and people who really are like that, who actually and they're very. And you just being around them is very. You just listening to them talk is very soothing, very relaxing. But for the most part, some people put on these little games. If that makes sense. Thank you, Letty. Okay. Hello, everyone. Tardy but present, listening while at work. Oh, beautiful. Buddha. Buddha's interesting because Buddha is a very interesting story, Siddhartha. So a lot of people don't know this part, which is really interesting to me how they don't know. But Siddhartha was a prince. And he came, and the king had been told by a sage that Siddhartha would be either a spiritual saint, or a great king warrior. And of course, his father, it's normal, right? Wanted him to be a great king warrior because he wanted him to inherit the title, if you will. And so what happened was he was kept very much in this palace. The king, Siddhartha's father, created a palace that had everything. It was a city within a city, if you will. It had everything. Everything was young. Everything was beautiful. There was food. There was this. There was that. It was great. And he had a charioteer. And for 3 days, I'm just going to keep it short. Every day, the charioteer took Siddhartha out, unbeknownst to his king father. And the first time he saw disease, and he asked what is disease? What is this? What is this? He'd never seen disease. And the charioteer explained. Second day they're out, and he sees an old man. He goes, what is this? What happened to him? Oh, he's aging. This is part of aging. People age. Siddhartha had never seen that. And the third day he saw death. And again, he'd never seen death. And the charioteer explained, this is what death looks like. And so he was going to marry his cousin, and he did. They made love, and they were very much in love, probably twin flames. And there's a story where they were making love on the rooftop of their palace, and they were so in focus with each other that they fell from the roof, and the flowers rose and grabbed them and carpeted them safely down to the ground. They were never aware they had fallen off the roof. So that's the kind of passion and love that they had for each other. And his son was born. A beautiful son was born. And for whatever reason, what Siddhartha had seen really, really haunted him. Death, disease, and old age. And the suffering that outside the palace walls people were experiencing on a daily. And when his son was born, something grabbed him. He wanted to know more. And he left. He literally abandoned his wife and his young newborn son into the wilderness and proceeded to become, as you well know, many of you know, the story of what happened to Buddha, the middle way. And so what's interesting about Buddha is that it shows us that we can all be on a path of self-realization. And for him, he had to leave the life of a husband, the life of a lover, the life of a father, and of a king. And he had to give up all his wealth. And it's interesting, too, because in the 1960s and 70s, there were a lot of debutantes, a lot of heirs and heiresses that actually left America, and particularly it was an American thing, where a lot of them left and went to India to study, to meditate, to find out what was real, what was not, and what was their duty on this planet, and asking really incredibly deep questions, not just from the safety of their homes, but in the wilderness of India, right? And seeking out Sikhs and sages and things of that nature. And so I feel as if we've been very lucky with some amazing men from India, like Yogananda Paramahansa. You can go to his self-realization centers, and there's a reported, if you've ever read the book The Autobiography of a Yogi, if you've never read that book, it is a must read. It's called The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And he was the real deal. There's no doubt he was the real thing. And there were other people that came. There was Prabhupada that came from India. He was absolutely broke. Broke. I think he was in the late 60s. And he was in New York City in the winter, living, barely living, and somehow was able to marshal, because he was doing Krishna's work, right? He was here to bring the teachings of the Vedas and translate the Bhagavad Gita into English and other works. And for some reason, I mean, he was divinely led. There's no way he could have done that. Broke. Not all his family said, "Don't do it. It's crazy. You're insane. You're broke. You're old. No one's gonna want to listen to you." And he came to New York City, and little by little, doing prasadam, which is holy food, with his little doll and his little plates of rice, and he started feeding the young hippie kids and talking to them about some massive, insane shit, like other planets, other worlds, other dimensions. And because many of these kids had taken LSD, they'd already seen different realities, right? So these kids were fascinated, and they were all trying to understand reality, especially with their experiences with these various types of medicines, mushrooms, so on. And he was able to get them straight. And ISKCON exploded all over the world. There's ISKCON temples all over the fucking world. And the Bhagavad Gita being translated, I think Allen Ginsberg read it and was playing Hare Krishna, the actual chant. So my point is, there's so many beautiful philosophies, religious beliefs, and things of that nature that are so magical that we need to like take pieces of everything. You know, when you think of a Joan of Arc, hearing voices and like whole armies following her into battle against the British to reclaim France for the King of France, it's pretty extraordinary shit, right? So clearly we do have divine guidance from divine sources. Clearly that is not something unusual, right? But the problem is that we have been brainwashed to be cynical. We've been brainwashed purposely by design not to see beyond the veils of 3D, not to feel, not to believe in our visions, not to believe in our downloads. And you have to understand, if a Joan of Arc could do it, you have to understand, women were thought to have subgrade human souls by the Catholic Church, number one. Number two, she was a woman in a massively misogynistic time, okay? And yet she was able to marshal hard-bitten warriors, and many of them probably had been were either descendants of the Crusades or had gone to the last battles of the Crusade. You got to understand where she was living and the time she was living for her to fucking accomplish that miracle. And yes, she still got fucked over. But to be fair, it was the French king who betrayed her and turned it into the British, and they did their dastardly deeds against this beautiful soul. But my point is, the point of me sharing all of these ideas is that when we look at various religious saints and leaders and avatars and so forth, we need to start like collecting these beautiful jewels of wisdom and realizing that we also can become that. From the most mundane people rose magic, and it marshaled people's passions to change for the greater good. Always. The fact that there were some like in the 1%, I'm going to call them the 1% always, by the way, moving forward on this conversation. I always do anyway. But the 1% sometimes had more might. And usually the might was always bribery. Okay, there was always something that induced people to turn or betray these amazing souls for money. Okay, it's no different than what happened with Yeshua and Pontius Pilate, and you know who I'm talking about, because anything we say becomes suddenly a racist point of view. But let's be honest about what happened. Joan of Arc was also betrayed by the King of France. The Knights Templars were betrayed by the King of France. A lot of these kings in France, you can see why the French Revolution happened at some point, right? Because they were fucking assholes. So we have to kind of look at why were the Knights Templars believing in the divine feminine Madonna, right? We're going to call her Madonna, Mother Mary, but also Mary of Magdalene. Why was this a secret? Why were they hunted down like dogs? Why were they wealthy? Why were they wealthy? How did they generate that kind of wealth? How did they manifest it? They were a very interesting breed of men, the Knights Templars. They believed in sacred geometry. How the fuck did they know this shit? What other secrets are hidden in the Vatican about what they wrote, these men? So and yet they were kneeling. They took one knee, right, to the divine feminine. Let's be honest. So when we start kind of like, you really don't have to be like a scholar of history, right, to understand all of this magic. Okay? Thank you, Letty. What's the story on Mary Magdalene? So she was Yeshua's wife. Yes, she was. Yes, she was. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think it was the 14th or 15th century where Pope Benedict decided to combine the three Marys. The Mary who washed his feet. The Mary who was a whore, who was stoned. And Mary of Magdalena. He combined all three. This is known. It's not, no Catholic will fucking refute what I said, because any Catholic, when I say, I don't mean Christian, there's a difference. Any Catholic that knows this story knows this story is true. Okay? Every theologian. And where did I learn this? From some of the Princeton, one of the great books you need to read is by Elaine Pagel, The Gnostic Gospels. That's probably the best Gnostic Gospels, in my humble opinion. But yeah, everyone knows that Mary Magdalene was his divine counterpart, his wife. And they were twin rays. What does that mean? Krishna and Radha were twin rays. Osiris and Isis was twin rays. Shall I go on? There's a list. And lists of beautiful twin rays walking the planet today. Okay? So it's not like we don't know what's happening. And why was that done? Well, it's very obvious, because you had a Catholic Church that actually didn't think that we women were we had souls. I'm not joking. In other words, they believed animals had souls just like women had souls. In other words, we were considered cattle. That was a belief system until the 70s. I'm not joking when I say that. Anyway, that's a known fact. The other fact on the concept of removing Mary Magdalena, she was a high priestess. That's also known now. All of this shit was known. So let me ask you this. Just think about it for a second. So the Essenes, as you know, he was part of the Essenes. The Essenes were so terrified of the actual scriptures being burnt, because they were being burnt by Constantine and his men, right? And the Romans, that they went out of their way to copy writings and to bury them in urns, in jars, all over the deserts of Egypt and Sinai. That's insane. I mean, if everything's going well, you don't need to hide ancient knowledge, right? So here they are, burying in caves. This is why we finally found the Dead Sea Scroll. It was a goat herder in 1947 that came across these urns of writings, and unfortunately brought that to his mother, who was using a lot of it to start fires in the oven. I'm not joking. And somehow somebody heard that they had found these ancient writings in Egypt and begged them to, it was an archaeologist or an Egyptologist, I forgot the details on that part, but basically said, please, I'll give you whatever, please give me all this. But a lot of it half of it had been burned for fuel. That's the story. So what we have in the Dead Sea Scroll is a fucking miracle. Okay? So again, there are tons of books on these subjects. There's Elaine Pagel's The Gnostic Gospels. There's The Woman with the Alabaster Jar by Margaret Bird. That's probably one of the best books. And there's a lot more books. I'm on this. There's The Cult of... there's all kinds of books I could give you, but I mean, you do your research, and one rabbit hole will bring you to another portal of knowledge. It's all there. I started reading that, but I wasn't ready for it. Why weren't you ready for it? Why weren't you ready for that kind of knowledge? Lost Words of Jesus tells of whose urns with writings in them. The story is amazing. Oh my God, go ahead and post that on our group, Rachel. Lost Words of Jesus. The books I started reading, the first book I read on Yeshua, because I had been hunting Yeshua since I was 8 years old. And I knew that what the Christians were telling me didn't feel right at all. It did not feel true. It felt like massive propaganda, in my opinion, the way it was being spun to me as an 8-year-old. So by the time I was 16, I came across a book called Jesus Lived in India. Those are the lost years of India. And recently, I just found out recently that apparently there was a German scholar who went into a Tibetan monastery in the 90s and was translating some of these Tibetan scrolls and came across the name of Yeshua multiple times. So apparently, not only did he go to India, but he went to Tibet. And there were mystery schools and energetic schools. And in Tibet, you have to understand that they could levitate monoliths through sound frequency with their trumpets. They have these big, they're not called trumpets, but there's these big horned trumpets that fall to the ground. You've seen them. You can look it up. You can look up monks, Tibetan monks with trumpets or something like that. And you should be able to see the images. And they were able to use sound frequency to move massive stones from one location to another. Okay, so if they could do fucking that with sound frequency, then very much like Shaolin masters could do all kinds of magical shit. So he actually had to travel from one place to another to learn from the great master so he could come back. Don't forget the three kings. See, people forget the three kings. They came from the east. So they came to say, here you are. Here is, when you're ready, bring him back to us. Meaning his mother, Mother Mary. Bring him back to us and we will train him. That's me connecting the dots. Okay? Does that make sense? So, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Rachel, for that. Well, who was the writer? If you could, like, Lost Words of Jesus, if you could write down who the author was of that book, that'd be awesome. That would be probably helpful for the group, and you guys can do a screenshot of that and do your research. Oh, okay, so she just said, Unearthing the Lost Words of Jesus. There's a book on I'll be buying that book, I can tell you that now. Thank you, Rachel. Any questions or comments? Any questions at all? So as you listen to people channeling, like when you look up Adam Apollo on Gaia and you see him channel, he's not channeling, he's actually just talking. He's actually fully conscious of what's going on, right? But if you then go down the rabbit hole of the guy who's interviewing him, his name is Rudy, who's channeling, supposedly channeling other people. I can tell you that some of the people channeling are for real, and some of them are full of shit, and I can tell. They're full of shit. And I can tell. And hopefully you can tell too. And what's interesting about Regina Meredith, she made a comment once, a while back in one of her shows, when she was introducing Lee Harris, an older show, and she said, there are many people who claim they are channelers, but you're the real thing. Okay, so she, by the way, just so you know, she's gone to mystery schools, the 9th mystery school, if I'm correct, and she has her own psychic powers and her own psychic. She's a powerful woman. She doesn't talk. She's very humble. She doesn't talk about it. She's always interviewing other people, but in her own right, she's on a high priestess level. And so when a woman like that says to me, right, as a viewer, yeah, this is the real thing, and I'm feeling the energy of Lee Harris, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm all in with that. And I was going to look up, and the reason why I did this live, it was I'm just going to be straight up. I don't give a shit if this offends you guys or not, because we're here to speak our truths, not to be programmed and bullied into believing certain things. So for me, Bashar, I have a problem with Bashar. And I'm not saying he's not channeling somebody called Bashar. I'm actually not saying that. I'm saying that the energy of Bashar doesn't seem to be kind, patient, loving, and all-knowing. Because some of the things I hear Bashar say feels parroted shit. It's stuff that us on the journey of spiritual awakening, self-realization, already know. So it's not mind-blowing shit I haven't heard. It's usually, and a lot of people who are brand new to the awakening, for them it's mind-blowing shit. For people like us, in my group, for example, it's shit we've heard 20 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? So some of it feels parroted. It doesn't feel like real, feelings. I'll give you an example. What the hell was the example? Hang on. I totally, my mind went because I was thinking of something that Lee Harris said. And in my meditations, I had come up with the same type of realization. And then I listened to Lee Harris talk about it, and I was like, holy fuck. That was my download. So pure downloads that are real are going to be across the board. In other words, it's going to be like, again, I keep using that example, the 100 monkey theory. Truth is truth is truth. You will get downloaded that truth, and it will be spun by another channel who's saying it a different way, but it's the same truth. It not too different, by the way, not off track, just a little bit, expressing it differently than you would, but it is exactly the truth you came to on your own in your meditation, and you will hear other people going, yeah, that's and that's when you know it's real shit. When you know it's real divine downloads. That's what we need to, and we need to start really getting very, very discerning and very, very careful, because we have way too many crazy fucking people leading people to the wrong place. The man channeling Bashar is an actor and director, so it's a red flag for me. But what he says is good stuff, but I don't think he's channeling. I don't know there, because there are other people who say they channel Bashar. Okay, so I don't know. I'm not. I haven't deep dove. It's not that important to me to deep dive. All I know is I scrolled past him for the most part. But today, I saw him making some very derogatory. It was like he was being a little bully, a little bitch to a guy asking about a question, and he kept fucking pushing how you pronounce Inky. Now, if you're doing Om, Shreem, Reem, Kleem, it's a good idea to try to do Om as best as you can in the best pronunciation, because it needs to be on a frequency, right? But because you and I are not, we don't speak Sanskrit, and I mean, when I mean Sanskrit in the classical way it was pronounced 7,000 years ago, for example. That's what I'm talking about. But the best we can do is Om, Shreem, Reem, right? But we're talking about Inky here, okay? Or Enlil, whatever. I forgot I think it was Inky. And he just kept going back and forth trying to get him to pronounce it correctly. And it's like, but we all knew what he meant. He meant Inky, okay? So it's like, that's a power struggle. It was stupid. It was a waste of time. And a real high-level soul would never, he would say, yes, you mean Inky, got it. Okay, let me answer your question. He would have volleyed back and forth doing that. And that was the point where I actually commented. And people got triggered to the comment that I said, I don't trust Bashar. And not because I don't think Bashar exists, just on the side note. But your point is taken, Rachel, and that's a very good point. He's an actor-director. I get it. But what I mean is, let's just go the high road with these people and go, okay, well, he exists. But the point is, what kind of entity is this entity? Is it an entity that really wants to help the collective in a real way? Or is it just bullshit? And is it getting fed its ego through the attention it's getting? You'll notice that the entities that actually channel through many of these wonderful channelers are not here to get their ego stroked. They're really here, sincerely there to help you. Abraham Hicks is one of the examples, in my humble opinion. I've yet to see Abraham Hicks be snarky. The fact that we're allowing and thinking that it's okay because it's being channeled that a snarky entity is okay is a red flag to your discernment. Because if you listen to Abraham Hicks, and when autism was exploding in 2005, 2006, you can look up the video. Okay, Abraham Hicks, autism, why is autism happening? And she and Abraham, the collective of the Abraham, explain it beautifully, brilliantly as to why this is happening, this started happening. It makes absolute sense. And it gave a lot of people around the world who were suffering as parents, who were in the very beginnings of autism, again, 2006, 2007, and that still beginning. People didn't know what the fuck was going on, really, to be honest, and what to do with it, including the supposed experts on the side note. And it gave people a lot of hope and a feeling of purpose. Go look it up so you can understand what I'm saying in a more concrete way. So, to me, snarky's not okay. I don't need your snarky ass to come and channel. I'll turn my back to you, and I'll get my knowledge from the 3 Z's and Abraham Hicks and maybe even Theo, right? Or some other less known channelers, right? Who feel as if they really genuinely want me to learn stuff, okay? They want me to heal my shit as soon as possible. They don't want me to be on a conveyor belt to 3D incarnations anymore. They know it's been my suffering, right? And they want me to come out of this dark night of the soul perpetually done by these incarnations and the amnesia, right? I'm just saying, be discerning. Good stuff, but I don't think he's channeling. Yeah. Does that make sense? Trust your heart chakra. Okay? Being snarky is thinking they're better than you. Exactly. Than you and me. Exactly. It is. That's shit. I wouldn't do that to any of you. I only do that to an asshole that says, oh yeah, prove reincarnation. Just tell me 5 reasons why reincarnation exists. And that's when I get snarky, saying, dude, I don't give a fuck if you believe in reincarnation or not. Goodbye. I don't have time for you. I'm not channeling. I'm not a high dimensional soul, by the way. I have a right to be pissed off. I don't have time to explain to you why the moon rises and the sun sets. I don't have time. If you can't still believe in reincarnation, and that was removed from the Bible by Constantine as bishop, if you can't figure out, and then you refuse to read what I'm going to give you in front of you, because I know you will, you'll refuse, then I move on. So at that point, I'm a bitch, and I get it. But aside from that, aside from people trying to bully me and to I've stopped those conversations. I stopped having for people 20 years ago. I used to in my 20s and 30s really try to argue my point as to why reincarnation happened and why it was important for our soul's evolution. I really tried. And after decades of doing it, I realized they don't fucking actually want to know why. They want to just hold on to their false prophets and their false ideas and let them enjoy. Bye-bye. See you on the, don't let the door hit you on the ass. So on that end, I can be a bitch. There's no doubt. But if somebody comes to me and saying, does twin flames exist? Because I'm suffering, I would never be rude to them or mean to them. At this point, I would bend the knee and say, my sweet, sweet soul, I understand how painful this is. Let me explain to you, you're not crazy. Number 1, you're not crazy. Number 2, if your twin is harming you and is a narcissist and is abusing you, this lesson is for you to choose you over anyone else and to turn your back on them. Just because it's a twin doesn't mean you have to take their shit and fucking overgive to them until you strip yourself of your entire identity and your self-worth. That's not the lesson. So, and I'm very patient with people who suffer like that, or who suffer their psychic abilities, or who suffer anything. I will bend the knee and absolutely look at them dead in the eyes, or energetically hug them and let them know that it's going to be okay. And let me tell you why, right? But so to me, we already know from Enlil, Enki, the Anunnaki, the ones that created us as we know it today, who treated us like slaves. And we know that 6, 7 dimension doesn't mean you're a good person. We know that there was an angel who eventually we started calling Lucifer, who really didn't want to deal with being good and being a servant of God and being a servant to the divine and to the collective souls that were incarnating throughout the galaxies. We already know that. So just because you're in 670 doesn't mean you're a good person, a good soul. We already know that, right? I hope we know that. We have reptilians and draconians that are assholes. We know all that, right? So that's why I'm kind of shocked at how people just blindly follow someone because they're saying I'm channeling this entity. It doesn't mean that this is the right entity to listen to, you know? And knowledge, like I've said before, on human levels, like Andrew Tate, I get knowledge from him. Candace Owens, I get knowledge from her. Teal Swan, I get knowledge from her. Do I like all these people in their wholeness? No, but all of them have something valid to say. Similarly, is that with channelers who channel snarky entities. It's no. I think we need to take it down to that level of understanding. Isn't it beautiful? Thank you. It is, isn't it? Beautiful young soul. So that's what I wanted to kind of share with you guys, is to really allow your heart chakra, right? Look at that little boy's beautiful heart chakra and solar plexus. Look at that. And really, like, trust your heart. The compass that you want to trust is your heart. It will never lie. Your monkey mind will always lie to you, but never your heart chakra. It will never lie. And people will say, oh, well, my heart led me astray. No, it wasn't your heart that led you astray. It was your monkey mind that led you astray. It's, oh my gut, I can't trust my gut. Your gut is reptilian. It's the root chakra, sacral. It's perfect for when there's danger, right? It knows, it shakes, it tells you, it rings a bell, run. Okay, good. That's good. But the heart chakra is a balanced, energetic compass of truth that never deviates. The needle never shakes. The needle never shakes. It's your mind that shakes the needle. Understand the difference. There's a difference to that, okay? Because your mind now is going to attack something that is a truth that you may not be willing to accept. It could be about a person, a place, an entity, a thing, a job, a this or that, okay? So that's what we need to get real, and we need to realize that everything I've just shared with you is we're all in different dimensions. Like, what's beautiful about as we rise out of the ashes of our ignorance through these really, really difficult incarnations we've all had on this planet for centuries, is that as we magnify our innate goodness to ourselves and to the collective, when we graduate out of 3D into 5D, 5D into 6D, we will not regress. Because to be honest, it's a lot more pleasant to be in your light and to be in your goodness and to be in your generosity for yourself and for the collective than to be an asshole and to be a taker and a warmonger and all of that. It's quite unpleasant, even to those who do it. You would think that they would learn by now, but apparently, clearly, here we are. We're looking at, the shit show in front of us going, how the fuck do people go to church on Sundays and believe this this is okay? And yet here we are. They've done it for centuries. So, but once you break away from these weird 3D ideas of normalcy and everything that's acceptable by these various religious beliefs, not one type, all type, okay? Then we start to realize that, as long as we stay to our truth and we follow our light, the light of the Divine One, and it's much more pleasant to live that path than any other path we've ever experienced, and we've experienced all of them. We've been warmongers, we've picked fights and wars, we've been greedy, we've done all that, we've done that, and we're done, and now we're going back to our innate goodness. Wouldn't it be funny? I just thought of this. Wouldn't it be funny is that as we go through a mass collective, I just thought of this. Wouldn't it be funny is that as we go through a mass collective, that pull of energy is so beautiful that it pulls Lucifer out of the darkness. And I'm just saying that, I'm using the word Lucifer, Satan, whoever this angel was that decided that the grass was greener somewhere else and that he would create havoc in human minds and human hearts across the planet. But wouldn't it be funny if actually he'd say, they're not wrong. Maybe I should follow this process. That would be amazing. But I'm just musing. It's just a parable, really. It's just an idea. But my point to it is that wouldn't it be interesting is that many of our people that we love who are lost in the maze of 3D, as we ascend, are pulled by the energy of our ascension so that they turn from left to right and start looking at other things that are much more in tune with their own soul's truth by just the fact that we ascend. And one of the problems, and I'm going to let you go with this, one of the problems that many of you who are ascending is that many of you are afraid to leave many of the people you love behind. And I always tell you this, don't look back. Don't wait. Keep going. And we have a lot of stories about that in the Bible, in Greek mythology, about looking back and them turning to salt or turning to stone or being thrown back into lower realms. Don't look back. Just keep ahead. Keep walking. It's funny how we've been given fairy tales, parables, mythologies to kind of give us clues as to what to do. And so the clue is this. Keep walking forward. Don't look back. No matter how they cry, no matter how you're being asked to turn your head backwards, that could suck you back into 3D. Keep going forward and know that they will rubber band to your side in this life or the next. I kid you not. For real. So have faith in your journey and trust timing for all, okay? Let me see. Hang on, let me look at this. So Andromeda Flame says, developing heart coherence is one of the most, if not the most important things to develop. Right on. By the way, if you guys are following me, follow Andromeda Flame. It must be exhausting for them, the cognitive dissonance and self-betrayal. Andromeda Flame, do you think they actually know better, or is it black and white for them? Some of them know exactly what they are doing. Some are puppets. That's a hard game to play. I think some of them actually are like pigs to shit. They love it. There's evil, there's ignorance, and there's greed. And some of them encompass all of these aspects, but some of them are pure evil where they love to be evil. They get a kick out of it. It gives them a surge. They love it. They love it. I mean, it's like pig to a trough, right? And they suck it up like milkshakes. And we have to understand that there are human beings walking the planet that exactly encompass that kind of philosophy and desire for more of that same shit. They're out there. We know it. I'll give you an example. When a man like Nestle, the CEO of Nestle, says that water is not a human right, that people shouldn't have a right to water, right there. I mean, I'm not joking. Okay, that's been a meme going around for like a while, but it's a true statement. He didn't come out denying it. He didn't say you misquoted me. How dare you misquote me? He never said that because he meant it. So that's pure evil. That's like insane evil. Like could you wrap your head around the concept that water is not a human right? What I love about this new generation is they're all doing a lot of video vlogging saying, why do I have to pay to live? Why do I have to pay to live? Well, they're correct, because 2,000-3,000 years ago, you didn't have to pay to live. If you saw a piece of land by the river, you could set up your mud hut by it, grow your vegetables, trade seeds and goods with other people, weave wool, trade a blanket for, I don't know, bread, whatever, right? Or wheat to make bread. Life was, it's like many of us remember what it was like on this planet and other planets where whatever we needed was present. And what's amazing about, and I was sharing that with Andromeda Flame, I was saying in 6D, if you want a table, there it is. If you want a table that's ornate, there it is. If you want a rocking chair, there it is. And I said to her, remember Andromeda, I said, and the reason why we can do that in 6D is because the monkey mind doesn't corrupt the desire. Whereas the reason why we have delays, and this is told in The Secret, the documentary Secret with Rhonda Burns, they say in the show, in the documentary, the reason why there's the delay is because essentially they're saying we don't know how to control our thoughts to create and manifest correctly. Do you understand? Meaning we might actually manifest a pink elephant, right? And there would be a pink elephant in the room. But it was just a thought that flitted out, like the monkey mind flits into one thought into another, like a monkey going from vine to vine on trees, right? It constantly moves back and forth all over, chaotic, right? But by the time we're in 6D, that is not how our brains, those levels of thinking work anymore. So when we see a beautiful ornate rocking chair that has like rose carved in it, that's exactly what we're going to get. And nothing else is intruding in that manifestation. So if we want a banquet of food, there it is. And then detailing all the kinds of food we want. And the influence of the food. Is it Hindu? Is it Italian? Is it French? For example, I mean, obviously, I'm using examples, metaphorically speaking. But what I'm saying is that at that point, if you want a 2,000 square foot house built on the side of the ocean, for example, and you want the ocean to look like Bali, then there it is. Do you get what I'm saying? And that is something that is extraordinary. And this is something that we all want. We want to aspire to ascend to that level of dimensional, so we're freed from all of the bullshit that we've been dealing with, and we've really suffered as individually, as a collective on this planet. We have. I mean, watch every movie. Rob Roy. What's another movie? Oh, Braveheart. Where's another movie? Robin Hood. What's another movie? All of the Kingdom of Heaven. Do I go on? The movies of wars throughout the planet. And using religion as a reason, or using land grabs as a reason. Land grab is not new. It's not something new. It's just so. But now, because of social media, we can see it like minute by minute as it's unfolding before our eyes in horror. It's like watching a train wreck. And so we can either let this completely decimate our vibration to ascension, which, by the way, a lot of this is done purposely to distract you, just like your job, trying to make ends meet, trying to pay your bills, trying to figure out if should I pay the groceries, how can I live and eat very minimally so I can make my cell phone bill. This is by design. This is why I mentioned Tucker Carlson going to Russia, and everyone that's been propagandized against Russia got knee-jerk that he went there. But my takeaway, it's the only takeaway I really got, well, besides a couple other things, but the one for me was food. Okay? $100 for 2 weeks of food. Now, you know, if you were in the 80s and 90s, that was a reality. $100 would get you 8 bags of groceries, 2 weeks of food. And inflation is not to this level where now for 2 weeks of food, for some people, it's between $400 to $650 or more. Some people, right? So now we're looking at the rent and or the mortgage as much as your food, or a little less than your food, but not much more. So now decisions have to be made. But let me tell you something on the side note. When I was 14 years old and I lived in Pacific Palisades, California, which is a richy poo part of California, I'll never forget, I was on the school bus going to, high school. And I remember seeing people right there on benches eating out of cans of dog food in the 70s. So it's not like it was being allowed. Okay? So it's not like, it's just more people going through that now. More and more people. But the fact that there was such a lack of care and compassion, allowing the elderly to eat dog and cat food, this was a thing. And those of you who are in the 70s who were aware, remember it. You remember that time. Okay? So that's going to keep you from ascending, isn't it? If you're just ready and you're just only concentrating on bare minimums. Okay? They worship the false celebrities. Money, power, they will pay karma in this life or the next. Well, the way I'm seeing karma played out, it's in this life, which we're seeing with P. Diddy and the domino effect of that. Look at what's happening to Oprah. They are subject to it like the rest of us. Some of them just don't give a shit. Yeah, okay, let me look at the rest of what you're saying. Sadly for them, unless they alone while they are here, that's true. More and more children too. So, yeah, I mean, basically what we have to look at when we create solid heart coherence, and I have to admit, I had a recent meditation where it looked like it was my guide coming to me, and then I saw shit, and I was like, wait, hang on, and I called on my twin, who, as many of you know, passed away. So I called on my twin, and I said, what do you think this is? And all these beautiful colors were around him. And then I said, do you mind if I bring in my, my husband's name was Nick. I said, you of course, bring him in. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all part of the same soul tribe. So Nick came in, and I said, can we talk about this? And he went, no, you don't have to do this. And then finally, I shared this with my son. And my son said, no, you don't have to do this. And then the last person I shared it with was with Andromeda Flame. And she said, no, you don't have to do this. So my point is, you'll know immediately something's off. And as soon as this was off, if you have a connection with people who have passed over, right? Call on them for guidance. Immediately call on them. If you're in a meditation where you're like, wait, hang on, where are we going here with this shit? Call on one of your ancestors. Meaning, I don't mean ancestors you've never met. I meant direct people who you loved, who loved you, who got you, you got them, and they passed away. Go ahead and call on them and ask for guidance immediately. And they will come. I'm not kidding. Ask and you shall receive. All right, any last comments and questions? I'm going to upload this and soon as it downloads, and then we will go from there. Any questions or comments, my loves? Thank you for being here. And thank you for trusting in your heart chakra. The more of you trust your heart chakra, the faster we're all going to ascend. Trust me. We're each individually on our own journey, but also our energy of ascension is a domino effect for many. Bad things are domino things. Good things is a domino effect. Choose your domino effect. Make that be part of the domino effect that brings massive healing to as many beautiful souls as possible. Thank you, my loves. VDRS, thank you. Andromeda Flame, Jennifer, Letty, thank you for being here. All of you that are here. And please follow Andromeda. She's got great content. She's my buddy. She's my Doc Holiday. And much love to you all. Namaste. Take care.